All right, well, welcome to our market landscape on value-based care. We're actually going to talk about two different topics today. One is data and analytics platforms, which is part of value-based care, and also population health companies. So both of those will be part of what we talk about. We'll hit data platforms first, because there's some cool research there. So as we look at the survey says, turn it on, and then it works much better for you. So we're going to do a couple of overviews for you. So just some C-level perspectives on priorities with their data and analytics. Then we'll look at data platforms. Then we'll look at population health and value-based care. So when it comes to data platforms, there's a lot to read on this slide. And if you want to read everything verbatim, great. You don't have to. Let me give you kind of the summary. So staffing shortages, burnout, and financial challenges. Those are the big three priorities, and people are looking to analytics, value-based care for long-term, because short-term, it's not going to help. Long-term, that's a great solution. So they're looking to that, and they're saying analytics is a short-term thing because then we can have analytics help our people to be more efficient and do the right things and hopefully operate at the top of their license if we give them the right things. Jeanette, you look like you're someone that is like, oh, I could use some help with that kind of stuff. Yes. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Porter. Good to see you. Welcome. So those are the big priorities, right? And so you can see reorganizing teams, recruiting talent, financial incentives, like we want to get people there. Number two, digital health and consumerism as short and long-term priorities. And then data and analytics, like there's one of the big things there's a lack of clear strategy as to what you're going to do. Yeah, you're all like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because that's what the market is right now. So here's some really interesting research that we did. So let me tell you about the X and the Y strategy. So X, we have the maturity of the data strategy across the organization. So this is how mature they are in their analytics. So this is where they are right now with their investment strategies. This is where we anticipate they will be based on what they told us about their future investment strategies. The goal of the data strategy, you can see on this end, is optimizing what they have. And here is where we get to transformative analytics. You can see we're not in transformative analytics. We're about optimizing what we currently have. Just thought that was a fascinating thing to share. So what are those priorities of what people are looking at when it comes to investing in analytics? And digital health, far and away, that's still number one priority for these organizations. Number two, data and analytics. Number three, patient engagement. And if you tie patient engagement and digital health together, right, then you say there's a lot of work about how do we engage the patient. Now, one of the things I will say is questions are welcome through this. Because if you want, I can diatribe the whole time. Like, if we need a filibuster, I'm there. But we don't need to do that today. So questions are welcome as we go through. But the digital health, consumerism, patient engagement movement, there's so much there. Now, here's one of the interesting things. There's so many different kinds of approaches to all of those topics. There's no one right way to do it, and we haven't proven this is, like, there's no Mandalorian, this is the way here. We need that, but it's not there. So when it comes to plans to address data and analytics challenges, one of the things that was really interesting, so I love this example comment over here. We're working on transitions with data analytics. We want to interface the operational team with our IT teams that need to provide infrastructure. We have had people all over the organization doing different work, and now we're trying to centralize the data and analytics team. And it just goes like, you know how we've always talked about how healthcare is siloed? Healthcare is siloed, and we're trying to break down those silos. That's what they're telling me. So that's where you see we're going to try and do a non-tech solution to help us centralize what we're doing here. And we need some help doing this. Then, yes, go ahead, Michelle. Yep, people, processes, right? Because if they say, hey, we're going to bring a technology to solve this for us, that's these other buckets. Or actually, it's not, because the don't know bucket, they just don't know. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we don't want them bringing it back into the silo. We don't. So the centralization of analytics. So the entire thought process is so because we want them to go towards a more centralized model. Because when you have that siloed approach, you take the same data into 5, 6, 7, 8, 100 different tools, and so you're replicating effort. So people are busy, but they're not busy doing the right things. Because if you have one central place for everything, like a data platform, and then you can plug all your applications into it, you only have to gather the data, normalize, and clean up the data one time instead of doing that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So now, third of providers identified a need for a solution that can help with data aggregation and adjacent solutions. And here's some of the things he said. We really need to flesh out our digital strategy, right? Data that we need for analytics isn't always readily available. We need to streamline across entities, have the data analytics to make good business decisions. Yeah, we're thinking about going to a data lake. We want to get the data more easily accessible. And so common themes of, okay, we need the data, but we don't have it right now. And you're like, wait, it's, hold on, 2023 and we don't have the data? Like, healthcare's behind. But I guess that's nothing new either. Yeah, it's not usable for them. Yep, and sometimes it lives in one person's mind. Yep. Oh, we could have fun just talking today. So, a couple other things. So when it comes to data and analytics, here's a couple of interesting things. So this is a lot of reading. I'm not going to make you read it. What we will do is, so we talked to providers about what kinds of data they're bringing together. And this is specific for data platforms. So this is not population health solutions. This is data platforms. What kinds of data are you bringing in? Clinical and claims still dominant because that's what value-based care was built off of. But a lot looking at financial data, and this is financial data from within the health system, right? So everything that's in your patient accounting system, you want to bring that in. Your operational data, everything from supply chain to your people data and all of that coming in. And then SDOH data making a run here, which we really like to see. But the big question mark about it is, well, once we have that data, what do we do with it? And is there a moral obligation for us to do something with it once the data is there? And there's a lot of question marks about, oh, okay, well, this is going to be fun. And then you can see over on the right what kind of data is in use by vendor. Now, it's really interesting that you see, and these are all vendors that we rate in our data and analytics platform segment. So that's where this data comes from. And you can see that there's a good mix of what's going on data-wise for all of these different vendors. Now, advanced analytics is part of being a data platform where you have to have some sort of machine learning, some sort of AI, and AI, not in the term of the buzzword AI, but actually AI, not just a good fancy algorithm. Like, you can train a model and it gets taught from that model. So now you can see when it comes to what are you doing in advanced analytics, the majority, nothing. Because we're just focusing on basic analytics right now because we're just trying to get our house in order. Predictive analytics, supervised machine learning, the next two, there's so much that needs to be done in this space, and just the person power to do it is what's lacking the most. Is people that know what to do and how to walk that road. Ooh, they're few and far between right now. Now, a couple other things to show you. So this is from a report that we did on data and analytics platforms. We are currently in flight with our update to this report. One thing that you'll see in here is Alteryx was in here for this report. They have since said we're not selling actively in the healthcare market. If you called them and asked them to buy it, they would still say yes, but they're not actively pursuing healthcare. That's Alteryx. Yeah. So, and you can see that when we estimated customer base, there's not huge customer bases for any of these people, because this is something that, even 3 years ago, the idea of a data platform was oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah, we don't have one of those, but maybe I'm interested in it. If you go back 6 years ago, I remember having a conversation with one of these vendors. So it was Innovacer, and they said, hey, Brad, I just want you to know we're not a pop health company. And I said, well, your booth says you're a pop health company, so I'm not buying. And they said, look, we're a data platform, but nobody's buying data platforms right now. And that's what we're built to do, but pop health is a use case that we can answer for right now. So that's something that they have done. And so really interesting. And now data platform people say, oh yeah, we would like to have a data platform. So now there's shoppers for data platforms now. Very interesting how that changed. So that 2016 was that I don't believe you because your booth says otherwise conversation, to today where we have a segment on it. Other thing that I want to show you. So we have a framework for data and analytics platforms. If you are interested to see that framework, I have an Excel document that has all of the different items that go into each of these categories. But you can see we broke it out to say, in order to be a data platform, you have to ingest data, you have to be able to manage that data, and there are solutions that stop just here. Those are your data management platforms, like a Find, like a Calibra, where that's what they do. But to be a data platform, you also have to be able to do, I'll just call it core analytics, and then advanced analytics. And then the underlying components, that's everything you need to do to be able to make the data interoperable within your organization, as well as secure. Because you have to have that security both from an internal and external perspective. So that's what the underlying components are. Now you can see here depth of adoption for each of these. And I should tell you, you can see all of these are an N of 3. Because we went to these companies and we said, give us your 3 deepest adopters. Just the deepest ones that are doing the most. We want to go and talk with them and validate what's going on. And you can see there's some stuff going on, and you would expect everything to be dark green across adoption for their deepest adopters. But we're still so early on in the data and analytics space. And then you can see advanced analytics, that's where we're falling the most short, because we don't know what to do with advanced analytics yet. All right, any questions on this before we move on? All right, speak now or forever hold your peace. Right? Okay, great. So now amongst deep adopters, you can see Cerner, Epic, and Health Catalyst see broadest use among established analytics technology vendors, and Dimensional Insight and Information Builders. And Information Builders bought by Tibco, and I don't know if they're continuing in this space, to be honest. So Cerner, their deep adopters actually say, yeah, we're really deep into this. Now, the Oracle this was just after the Oracle acquisition that we published this. So it's a little dated, and right now the conversation is, we don't know what's happening with the Oracle acquisition. We know things are going to the cloud, but that's about all that we know. And it makes us a little nervous. Epic's deep adopters, so Epic has a lot with cognitive computing, but When it comes to true AI, they're not there yet. So they're pushing hard to get there, but they're not there yet. Health Catalyst has a lot of deep adoption from their customers. So even though the platform is called DOS, which I remember DOS, and all right, C:/enter. Okay, we're on the C drive, right? And that's what I think of every time I hear the name of the platform. But it's the data operating system, and it's much more robust than DOS that we remember from the 1980s. So they have a lot of deep adoption. They drive a lot of that deep adoption through managed services, and they do a lot of work for their customers. And they have developers that say, well, what would you like to build? We can help you with that, right? So it's a lot of hand-holding and a lot of, I'll call it hands-on keyboards with the customers to make that happen. Now, Dimensional Insight, they are in this category because they have a lot of the capabilities. Their customers are just smaller customers. And so one of the things that we hear from, I'll call them the bigger players, we're like, we don't compete with Dimensional Insight. We don't ever see them. Like, well, yes, because you don't ever go up against them in their deals because they are typically in the lower end of the market. So, and then information builders, I haven't seen anything new from them since the Tibco acquisition. So they may be getting out of this market. Yeah. So the question is, do all of these organizations have some level of services that they offer? And you are correct that we do not have this on this chart yet. Now, is that something that we could potentially put in there for the future? Absolutely. Now, I will tell you that ClearSense and Health Catalyst are the heaviest on services, those two. And Arcadia has available services. Like if you wanted, so they picked up Sage in 2015, right? And so they acquired a lot of services from that. So if you want them to do it for you, they can, but they are more a technology play than a services play. Yeah. Yes, difference between a want and a need. Yes. So, but yeah, definitely an aspect of the current market. So one of the things that we're currently working on is what does the outsourced or managed services part of the market look like right now? Because the classic, Lumeris Evolent model of 2016, that's not the model of today. People are looking for more, I need help with this piece of what I'm doing. Like I need to outsource some care managers because I can't staff them in my area, or I need someone to come and do data ingestion for me because I don't have the staff to manage that. So there's a lot of little pieces that are being outsourced. And so we're working on a report to capture that in a meaningful way so that providers can see, if I need to outsource this, who can I go to? So that's something that we're working on actively. So couple last notes on data platforms. So deep adopters of Innovacer, high adoption across all the pillars. And going back to the 2016 conversation, Innovacer really says they're built to be a data platform, and their customers echo that. Where they're like, yeah, this is the data platform that we've been looking for. So maybe they are the droids we were looking for. We're not sure. Great Star Wars reference. I appreciate that. So, and then we'll just do Arcadia and ClearSense here. So Arcadia, 2 large clinics and 1 ACO, right? So those are the customers that are deeply adopting this. So basic capabilities, they have everything. When it comes to advanced capabilities, they're just not as deep. So that's what's going on with Arcadia. And then ClearSense, like I said, a lot of services to buoy up what they're doing platform-wise. So, all right, now this is our decision insights, and let me walk you through how to read this chart before we talk about it. So in decision insights, when we talk with providers, they say, oh, we recently made a decision, or we're looking to make a decision on a platform. Then we say, oh, well, who are you looking at? Or who did you look at? And who is your decided choice, or who is your likely choice? Who are you leaning towards? Why them? Why not the others? This is data that we gather. I like to call it in the wild, as we talk with providers and payers. And these are the decisions that are happening. So you can see, so Epic, out of the 34 decisions, yep. So number of mentions in a potential deal. So we had 34 different decisions. Epic brought up 11 of those times, because it's 4 plus 7. Health Catalyst was in 6, so on and so forth. So that's the number of times that they were in, and then plus the number that they were also. So you can see Epic, 4 out of the 11 times they were either the decided or the likely choice. Now on the other side of this, we have those that are being replaced. And you might say, wow, it looks like Health Catalyst is in a lot of trouble, because they have a lot of replacements happening. Well, there is, and you can see Epic at the top of this chart. There's a lot of discussion around, well, we're thinking about, and this is, we're thinking about replacing them is included in we're replacing them. So that's both of this together. And the discussion goes, well, we're working with Health Catalyst. We like them a lot. We're thinking about just going with Epic and having them be our solution. But we don't know if that's going to work, because Epic, they do really well with Epic data, but we're not sure about the rest of the data. And so that's how a lot of those conversations have gone as we've looked at data platforms. But the Epic, we are in Epic, and there's the Epic is quote unquote free for us. That plays into this, and you can see the rest of the players like Arcadia, Innovacer there, and then you also see down here Microsoft. Tableau is sometimes considered. And you're like, Tableau's not a data platform. They're a data visualization vendor, which is true. But a lot of interesting things going on in the data platform market. Welcome, friends. You're welcome to take a seat. Go ahead, Porter. One CIO that I talked with put it best. She said, we can get the outside data, but it's a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift. So that's how they do with outside data. Yeah. So a couple other things. When we looked at and we said, well, why are you choosing this particular vendor? You can see functionality and integration. You put those two together, they're the most common decision factors. And the bullet points there are the key functionalities that people talked about: reporting, operational workflows, dashboarding capabilities, and advanced analytics such as predictive analytics. Those were the main. So if you take functionality, what were they talking about? Those are the big four. Not the big four accounting firms, but those are the big four reasons that they were looking at that. Enterprise scalability, usability, driving decisions, also integration, just being able to have the same data set across the network, right? Whether that's the IDN or the clinically integrated network or the ACO or whatever the entity is, because there's multiple people, multiple stakeholders, multiple offices that need this, right? So, and that interoperability of data, that flows into integration. All right, so we're gonna jump now to population health and value-based care and some of the research that we've been doing in there. Now, what I'm gonna do is show you this slide. If you want to read all the words, you can, but here's the summary of this slide. So third-party technologies still have a big place to play in this market. Everybody wants to consolidate, and consolidation is happening. 5 years ago, it was not uncommon for me to talk to someone and say, how many solutions are you using to help with population health and your value-based care endeavors? They would say 4, 5, like lots of vendors. Now it's down to 2 is the average. So a lot of consolidation happening. Now, here's one of those slides where you look at it and you're like, oh no, we're taking a step backwards. And I'm like, yeah, it feels like it. So this is 2019, 2020, and 2021. And you can see this is the percent of revenue coming from different kinds of contracts. The orange here is fee for service, and then the different kinds of contract models over there for value-based contracts. And as you can see, and there's a larger trend for this. Like if you looked at 2016, or let's say 2015 to 2020, it was kind of a gradual decrease in fee for service, increase in value-based care revenue. And then we get to 2021 in the pandemic, and everybody says, yeah. And fee for service increases. And you look at that and I'm like, oh my goodness, that is so sad. Like we were making progress. It was slow, but it was progress. But you think about what happened in 2021 and all of the health systems that were, it was X million in the red in Q2 of 21. And how do we make that up? Well, the only way we know how to make that up is fire up the fee-for-service machine. And so let's get heads in beds. We need more elective surgeries. We need to do these things. And that is how we are going to make up the revenue. Now, a value-based contract, a fully capitated contract, that's not going to make it for you in the short term. Long term, it's great. And during COVID, I had so many conversations with people who, health systems that kind of looked across the fence at their neighbors and like, wait, it's business as usual over there. Like, what are they doing? Oh, they have fully capitated contracts that represent more than half of their revenue. That makes sense. So there's a lot more interest in it, but with that interest comes, okay, well, are you ready to fundamentally change how you practice healthcare? Because there's change management that comes with it, and that's a scary world because there's so many things that need to change. So now that's the adoption of payment models. Next thing is, what are the combinations of tools that are out there? Now, this is one of those charts where you might look at it and be like, I have no idea what this chart is telling me. And I am okay with that. So on the right, this is loyalty to third-party tools. And you can see that is dropping. And we're going to stay with them because we like what they do. And that drop-off really comes because of the reasons we already talked about, where there's consolidation, there's financial pressures. And if I can do this, there's also the Epic will get us there eventually mentality. So we're okay with that. Now, you can see this population health tool type. So on the orange is we're only using our EHR for this. So we're only using Epic, we're only using Cerner, we're only using NextGen, whoever our EHR tool is. The blue is we're only using a third-party tool for this. The dark blue here, we're using a homegrown solution. You're like, those still exist? Yes, they still exist. And then we're using a combination of tools. Right? So you can see that this piece of it, the EHR only, that's grown significantly over the last couple of years. The combination of tools, that has stayed pretty steady. The third party only, that has shrunk significantly. And you can see the administrative financial piece, that is where we have the biggest gap. And a lot of that is around the administration of different value-based contracts, especially when it comes to bundles and fully capitated contract, because it's just hard to administrate those. It really is. So this is about purchasing. We're going to skip that one. So this is more on Decision Insights, but we already talked through this. So I wanted to show you the data from the decisions that are being made in the population health arena. Now, what do you notice about these top four? All of them are in data and analytics platforms. Heavy emphasis on data. And for the population health market, that's where the emphasis is still. They're looking at data. And so they really want to have that where they can say, we're going to get the data right, and we're going to get our Pop Health tool to do the same workflow of aggregating and analyzing data, but we can also use that in other places, not just population health. So you can see that Optum has the most replacements in this space, and two things play into that. Number one, Optum is expensive, and then the United ownership of Optum. That's something where they say, well, we know we can bring in our United data into this, but we also want to bring in Blue Cross data into this. And I don't know if Blue Cross is going to be willing to share if they think that their data might eventually get back to United. So that's another thing working against Optum in this space. So Arcadia, Innovaccer, they are chosen most often in this space because they have that underlying data infrastructure, and then they have pieces built on top of it. Arcadia they have more expertise in the value-based care space. Innovaccer's growing into it, and a lot of what they've done is they've said essentially to customers, well, any way you want to do it, we can do it. You want to build a care management module? We can build a care management module for you. And now they're in the phase of, oh, we have too many customers to keep up with all those customizations that we've done, so now we're going to consolidate all these together. So that's happening with them, and you can see, second bullet point there, platforms, customizability, and workflows, risk algorithm. That's why Innovaccer's chosen. Arcadia, functionality, timely data integration, and their expertise in value-based care. And then Epic, they get a lot of looks because of, I'll call it the Epic phenomenon, where Epic's going to get us there eventually. So now, why are people choosing these platforms? So now, we looked at the data platforms earlier. Top two, functionality and integration. Those are the top two reasons. The third reason is my favorite, value-based care or pop health expertise, meaning they've been there before and they can help me walk this road, right? And when it comes to, and this is in the bolded portion here, expertise in pop health specific data models, value-based care contract expertise, and healthcare trends, they have their unique purchase factor to population health tools, because providers essentially say, we have a maze in front of us, and there might be a minotaur in the middle. I don't just want a piece of string. I want someone to come and walk with me as I go through this maze. And that's what Arcadia does really well. And that's why expertise is up there, because we ask providers, like, what's the number one reason you're confident about moving forward in value-based contracts? Number one reason? Because we have experience with it. For those that weren't confident, guess what the number one reason that they weren't confident? We don't have any experience with it. And so that experience really key to all of this. Oh, and here we go. This is the slide that I should have gone to the next slide just to say, here's where all of these connect. Now, a couple other things to point out. The relationship, this is also something where they say, we want a long-term partner in this. Like, this isn't something where we want someone to bring us technology, drop it off, and say, see you later. Like, we want someone who's going to walk the maze with us. I have a lot of slides on the different connections here. Okay, so we already talked about this one. One other one. Cost is creeping up. It wasn't as much of a factor before. So cost is coming into the equation here. And Health Catalyst, since they wrap so many services around their technology, that's something that's starting to hurt them, is the price point is high because of those services. So being brought into more considerations here. And then one last one here. This enterprise platform, that's something that people are really looking for, right? And so platform, that was the buzzword of last year at HIMSS, right? This year it seems like ChatGPT is the buzzword, where everybody's talking about it. And I'm like, I hope you aren't using ChatGPT to understand what to do with your pop health contracts, because I don't think it knows it yet. But maybe it will very soon. So let me show you a couple other things from our research. So when it comes to consideration and loyalty, you can see that we've broken it out of how often they're considered and then their loyalty to the platform. So you can see Epic, they're in some decisions very loyal customer base. Lightbeam, they have some customers who are frustrated with them because they feel like they're not living up to the promises that they made. There are also some customers from so Lightbeam picked up CareSignal and Javion, and they're putting all of those assets together. Once they have it done, if they can do it right, it'll be dynamite. But we haven't seen the dynamite yet. So, and then you can see everyone, it's just a hard market. I think that's the best takeaway from this one. It's just a hard market. So, Relevant Healthcare, they are in the FQHC space. That's where they live. They have a SQL-based platform that is very easy for their customers to use. Turnkey, QBS reporting. So for FQHCs, because they have to do that reporting every quarter, right? And it's really turnkey for them. So we've seen them take off a lot in the FQHC space, and that's the only place that they are. So that's who Relevant Healthcare is. So Next Gen Eagle Dream, I really wish that they had kept the name Eagle Dream, because that would have been great to have in the market still. I talked with Eagle Dream before they were acquired, and I said, why the name Eagle Dream? And they said, because we help our customers soar above the clouds. And I'm like, wonderful. Yes. So NextGen has taken that, and they have kind of put it as the engine in the NextGen car. And so the NextGen customers really happy with it so far. Those legacy Eagle Dream customers, not as happy because they feel like they've been neglected and forgotten, and well, they kind of have been. But NextGen, if they continue on the road they are, then they'll be really strong for their customers. Yeah, great question. All right, couple other things to talk through. So these are the core pillars that we have for population health. So this is based off of a framework that we developed at a summit with providers and payers, as well as vendors, and then class people there to facilitate the conversation. We said, what do you need to have to be able to do population health and do it well? And these are the core pillars and their definitions. So you have to be able to aggregate data, analyze the data, care coordination, care management, right? Administrative and financial, also patient engagement and clinician engagement. Interestingly, with patient engagement, a lot of third-party vendor use there still, and that specifically to them. Now, what I'm going to show you next is based off of a report that we did where we took a look at adoption of, okay, how much capability do you have, as well as how deeply adopted are your customers? So a lot of boxes on this slide. So there's a lot to take in. Yeah, slide overload. And sorry, but not sorry, because I wanted to give you all the data. So you can see, based off of the functionality in the framework, how deeply, not integrated, how deep is their functionality within that pillar? And then how well is that adopted by their customer base? Because you can have great technology and none of your customers use it, so you don't have great technology because none of your customers are using it. So you can see data acquisition and data analysis, very heavy in those pillars, and that's true for all of the players. Now, we did break this out into those that are inpatient EHR vendors, those that are primarily with large hospitals and IDNs, and then those that work primarily in the ambulatory market. Now, NextGen was left off of this slide, and I can't remember why. But they also play in, I'll call them the primarily ambulatory market. Now, with all of these, you can see once we get a little further right, the adoption drops off significantly. Now, the financial reporting piece, that's really important because we have to know if we're going to make money on the contracts that we're in. But there's a lot of a lot of uncertainty in that space, because as you move down the risk spectrum, so if you're in a shared savings contract and it's upside only, you're not really worried about my costs as an organization, because you're going to get a bonus payment or you're not. And that's where a lot of the market is still, is in that early stage of upside only. There's not a downside. And there's a lot of hesitancies to move to downside risk because we don't know how we're going to perform against this. So now with this, there's so many things that can still be done with these population health tools. You can see that a lot of them have the functionality, but it's not being adopted by customers. A lot of that being because they have to focus on what they need to focus on right now, because you really want to get these two pillars first, and then you can build on top of that with everything else. Now, a couple last things to show you, and okay, we're doing okay on time. So this is a summary, and we talked through all of these things. Let's take a look at Decision Insights. This is one of those trending charts of considerations that we've seen, and you can see the Innovacer in 2017, not a lot of considerations, and they've continued to climb up. You can see Arcadia's maintained kind of a similar trajectory, and then Epic, you can see just kind of always there. Now, the other part of this is when they're the likely choice, and Epic used to be, in 2017, it was a lot more prevalent of, hey, we're going to go with Epic. Now it's not uncommon for us to hear, we have Epic, but they're not there yet. So we need someone to come in and help us with that. And typically that's around data integration or aggregation from sources outside of Epic. Yep. And whether that's payer data, or so claims data, or clinical data from other sites, and that could be affiliated physicians and doctors, or it could be part of the network or ACO that they're in. So, yep. So, and relevant, it might just be because we talked with 3 sites where they said, oh yeah, we recently got relevant. So, but it is very popular with the FQHCs. So, now I believe that concludes what we're talking about today. Let me just double check here. So, yeah, and there are just some summary slides that have all the different functionalities after that. So, thanks for sticking with me. Any questions I can answer for either of you? Okay. Well, thanks so much for attending, and hope you have a great rest of your hymns.